Hi there, and welcome to Conversations with Rob. My name is Rob Duffy. So this podcast is me meeting and talking to people I find interesting with a bit of a story and something inspiring going on in their lives. Just yesterday I caught up with Derek Cullen, who has a really interesting story to tell. I grew up living quite close to Derek in Fairhouse in Dublin. So I hope you enjoy his story here, and please head over to his YouTube channel, which is called Derek Cullen. And on Facebook, his page is called No Hanging Around. So I'm here with Derek Cullen, obviously. And Derek is... How would you even describe yourself? Would you say you're an adventurer?
Tall, handsome, no hair, don't care.
But would you say you're an adventurer? Would you say you're a sort of...
You know, adventurer, it's just a made-up word, everything else is. Yeah. But it does give people an idea of what I do. So when I say outdoor adventurer, that's, what I love to do. Yeah. That's how I love spending my time. I'm passionate about the outdoors, being outdoor, and I love sharing that with people. So it's difficult, you can't. I don't think you can just box me in one word, but you can say that about anyone for that matter, What I'm doing now is I'm creating an online business that funds my lifestyle of being an outdoor adventurer.
Yeah.
So
that's your passion. And maybe to give people sort of an idea of what you started this with, you traveled through Africa. Do you want to tell a little bit of that story? You went through Africa on a bicycle. You started off in South Africa and you cycled all the way up to Egypt, was it?
Yeah, Cape Town to Cairo.
Incredible. So what was the motivation for that start?
Motivation. It's hard to use that word because, for that particular time, because I was entirely demotivated then, and definitely in hindsight, I felt like I'd emptied the tank and I was stuck, and I'd hit a brick wall, and I was questioning my whole existence, what I was doing, how I'd spent my adult years. So, I was fed up, is the way to describe that, and I decided it was time to change that in some way. I didn't know how, so I chose to take an adventure, and I thought maybe I should do something outdoors. I love being outdoors, and I've been to Africa before. Why don't I go and do something in Africa? And I had thought about I was learning to ride a motorbike at the time. People probably don't know this. I never got the license, but I priced a motorbike trip through Africa, and I couldn't afford it. So then I was looking at cheaper methods to do it, and a bicycle didn't really cost that much money.
Incredible.
So that was really, my motivation, if there was any, was to just not live the life I had been leading. Yeah. And I literally quit my job, and 1 week later I was in Cape Town. But when you look at it's hard to put this in words in a logical sense, because back then it was chaos. I just fucking quit and I just left. I didn't put any pieces together. I didn't really spend too much time thinking about what had gone wrong or how I was going to fix it. I just knew I had to do something. And rather than just keep pondering it, I just tried to do something. But I didn't really have a plan as such. Not recommending that's a good way to go about anything, but that's how it happened. That's how it started.
What was the life that you had maybe in Ireland at the time? What sort of job were you doing, and what was the sort of catalyst to sort of get away?
Yeah, my background is more so in office-related work. So I worked in investments and banking for years. At the time, I was working for a company in tourism here, so it actually wasn't so bad. But I was still in an office. I was still 9 to 5, and I was still spending my free time going to the pub, or I guess how a lot of people spend their time here. I didn't find that inspiring. Some people enjoy that and they're content, they're happy to live that way, but not me. I was very unhappy, and it was showing. So I was really worn down by then. I was hitting a peak.
Yeah.
I couldn't live that way anymore.
Yeah.
But I think just general office work is really what I was doing.
Right. So you land in Cape Town and you buy a bicycle. Had you got a tent? Had you got like all the equipment that you needed to go on this?
No,
adventure?
I hadn't. Well, number one, I didn't know what I needed to buy, so I had nothing. I realised it was difficult to get the bicycle I needed because it was a very old. I needed a bicycle which didn't have anything on it that could break, so I couldn't have suspension, any of these things, because I didn't know how to fix them. So I had to find a really basic mountain bike that would be strong.
Durable, yeah.
But Cape Town don't have these. They just have all these high-tech bicycles and road bikes, all the stuff that people want nowadays. But I needed something really basic that I didn't know, had to learn how to fix. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that took quite a while. And in the end, I found a bike shop who he took a bit of pity on me actually, and he found one online. It was only $150, and I bought it. And then he taught me how to fix a puncture. And about a week after that, I left.
And that was kind of the team, like watching your videos, you've seen that like everywhere you went where there was sort of populated areas, there's people there that wanted to sort of help you. Well, apart from Ethiopia where they were throwing stones at you.
It still happened there too, yeah. It was common. I think since then I've learned it's not just Africa, it's common everywhere. You know, the people in Africa are extremely friendly and primitive. They have that about them. So they welcome you straight away, they share, they're not afraid, they're very curious about visitors. But I think I did learn, it was the first time I started to realise that people are very receptive to other people that are vulnerable. I think in some way they put themselves in the shoes of that person and they realise they need to help them. There's a strange exchange there. You don't see it, but it happens. And it even happens here. You know, I think, for example, if you tell somebody that you're afraid of something, if you open up to them about your anxieties, they're not going to be hard on you. They're not going to make life any more difficult. They're going to be inclined to empathise with you, or to take you in, or to tell you something about their fears. You know, so they're going to be more hospitable to what you have to say. So I think on a very primitive level, it makes sense. You know, so people were taking me into their house. They were helping me fix the bike when I didn't know how, or all these things. It happened everywhere, yeah.
How long did the trip take you altogether?
1 year.
1 year. So from the bottom of Africa to the top.
Yeah.
Wow.
You could do it faster, but I stopped a lot, and to be quite honest, I was too tired. Yeah. My first day I could only do 20 kilometers, and I collapsed. So, you know, it was slow at the beginning. Well, no, it wasn't the heat that day. I wasn't physically able for it. The bike was heavy, and I had no experience. So, you know, you can only do what you can do.
It really was putting yourself out of your comfort zone.
I think so. The further I went, definitely when it came to the animals, yes.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the animals. You've got elephants, giraffes, hyenas you heard during the night.
Yeah.
I can imagine your fears were definitely, you're aware of your fears.
I'm aware of the fear more before it happens, you know, than when you come across these animals, for example. The lead up is always, the thought of it is worse than the actual when it happens. For maybe 2 months at the beginning of the trip, or 6 weeks, there's not that many animals. If there were, they're not very dangerous. But that was the period I worried the most. So those 6 weeks leading up to the areas where there was wildlife, I was terrified. I was terrified because I was alone, because I didn't know how to cycle, and then because subconsciously I knew the animals were coming up. So I thought to myself, this is nothing. You know, I might be afraid now, but roll on next month, this is real. Excuse me. So, when I got to these areas, there's like Botswana, there's, you know, lion, for example, roam free there. There's a lot of them. Hyena, you know, all the big game, it's there. So you have to be mindful of that. You can't just go in there and have food in your tent, or you can't, you know, be riding your bicycle at night time. There's a way to proceed, but that's, of course, in my mind. It was terrifying. And I mean, some nights, to give you an idea of the extent, I would fall asleep out of fear, almost fainting. I was so scared on a few nights that I would be shaking, and the next thing I know, I wake up in the morning. not remembering falling asleep. You know, that's how scared I was.
And just from a personal development standpoint, I can imagine that the growth that you were encountering in yourself over there was, I just imagine that being profound. Like, what would you say was the most sort of profound growth spurt that you found yourself having achieved at the end of it?
It's nothing physical, you know. It's difficult to answer that. There's so many things, you know. There's so many sides to this. I was alone for the most part of that year, so you know, separating myself from everything and everyone for that long, it left me with a lot of alone time to work out my own thoughts and how I felt, you know, without being interrupted. So that was important. If I was to pick one thing out, it was possibly coming home, because I realised when I came home that it wasn't all about me, and this was something that happened throughout that trip. I would realise through all the people I was meeting, or whenever I shared stuff on social media or the emails people were sending me, I realised that what I was doing was having, in some cases, more effect on other people than it was me. So I was able to produce whatever that was. I was able to offer all these people value from what I was doing. So I just felt like that gave so much purpose to my life at that time, and this was something I did not have before that. I didn't have a real purpose, but during this time I had one. Not only was I going from A to B, I had a purpose where I was also having this opportunity to touch all these people's lives.
And there was a charity involved as well, Avion's Pink Tie, was it?
Yeah, that was huge. So Avion's Pink Tie is a child cancer charity for Ireland, the national child cancer charity now. So I decided to use it to raise money and awareness for them. You know, that's not the reason I took this trip. I made that clear, but while I'm at it, I thought I might as well try and raise money if I can. So it did. It was great. And that also, again, for me, the most important thing, it put me in touch with a lot of families that are still in touch with me today. And the owner, Jimmy Norman. So these people still contact me today. They still follow me, and they still genuinely support me. And they tell people about my trip, and I realised that was the exchange again. You know, they saw me do this. There was nothing spoken about this, but I got back tenfold just mentioning them. They're giving that back to this day. They're still giving back what I did for them. Yeah.
And from that, I suppose you got wanderlust. You found yourself then over in Southeast Asia, and a lot of people might have seen your YouTube channel where you did a daily vlog.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your inspiration behind starting that?
The inspiration behind the video, I'm fascinated with video cinematics and outdoor adventures. But to be quite honest with you, part of the reason I wanted to start that vlog when I did was because I was receiving so many messages and comments from people saying they wish they could do what I do. And I'm trying to say this in the least negative way, but I wanted to document what I was doing to prove that anyone could do it, you know, and that what I was doing, all it took was hard work. So, because I think a lot of these people felt as though I had something that didn't require work, that it was just either a talent or I was lucky or, you know, had something special or a special formula or skill qualifications. I had literally none of these things. But I wanted to prove that, so I thought video is the only way I can show them. Is to video how often I work, how hard I work, that it's not coincidence, that I am where I am because I just spend all of my time working, whether that's in an airport in the middle of Vietnam, whether that's sitting in a cafe in Thailand, or, you know, trying to get a bus somewhere in Africa, that I'm always working. So my motivation to start the vlog was to document how much I worked. That's being honest, because I was getting a little bit frustrated that people didn't seem to recognise that all this took was work. You know, there was no ingredients for other than focus and work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like all throughout this, you're building your business and you're working
Yeah.
as documenting what you're doing, getting up in the morning, and every story. Like, I loved following your blog. Every day, as you said, you wouldn't even have at the start of the day an idea what the video would be about. At the end of the day, you'd decide.
Yeah.
I thought that was fascinating because it doesn't come across that way at all in the videos.
Good.
Which is great. And now that you're back in Ireland, you've started Microadventures Ireland. Do you want to tell people a little bit about that?
Well, I've always loved the theory. The micro adventure is, they're short. There's a definition that they're short and local and they're affordable. So they don't cost money. It's something that you can walk out your front door and have one. Even if you have to be back in work first thing in the morning, you can do that. So I decided to make videos of this again to prove it. Because like what people said about my business, I knew they'd say, oh, but I don't have time or I don't have the money. So I said, you know what? I'm going to prove this by doing it. I have to work myself. I'm showing you how much I work. But even though I'm working, I'm going to walk out my front door, in this case my brother's front door in Holt. I'm going to put a tent on my back and camp on Holt on the cliff. So I did that, and I was back in work by 7 a.m. I watched the sunrise, I got back to work for 7, and that was an amazing adventure. I did it in the space of 10 hours, but it was amazing. I got the same feeling, same adventurous feeling from taking that trip as I do when I'm traveling around Asia. So that's, the concept of micro adventures, and that's what I would like to work a lot on here in future for sure. There's other parts of what I do I want to put together before I can do that, before I can afford more time to just doing that.
Yeah. But it's great, like the one in the Hellfire Club, you created a real atmosphere in the video.
Yeah.
Like, it's a scary story behind that place. And
trust me, it was a lot scarier filming that than that video makes out.
Yeah, I know I touched on...
I put a nice
Sheridan.
happy ending on it, but the reality is I was scrambling down that hill. Because I remember I bumped into Andrew Skelly in the cafe at the bottom. There's a small cafe down the hill, the Timber Trove. And I went in for a cup of tea and I was working online, and he came in, and I couldn't believe I hadn't seen him in years, and he came up talking to me, and I was just so happy to meet anyone, because I'd spent the whole night terrified. Yeah.
But then after that, you continued on your way up to Glencree, and I think that was on the way to Bray, was it?
Part of that was unplanned, actually. Not entirely unplanned. I put enough food in my bag for 3 days.
Right.
There's enough water up there in the mountains. You don't have to carry all your water, yeah? So when I left that cafe I mentioned, I just kept hiking, yeah? So I had that in my mind that I'm going to bring enough food that, if I'm not too scared to continue, I won't go home. So I walked from my brother's house to the Hellfire, and I was going to go back to my brother's house, but instead I went over the mountain and kept going. So I really just decided that morning I was going to keep going. I went up over Massey's Woods, Glencree Woods, really beautiful. And then I camped in a forest somewhere that night. I don't think there's a particular name on it. It was just in the mountains there somewhere. And then I continued down towards Powerscourt. Just kept hiking on the trails there. Really, really stunning scenery,
When people watch your videos,
There was no aim to that, by the way. I wanted to hike, so I went hiking.
Yeah.
There wasn't I wasn't on a mission.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. But when people are watching your videos, what message would you like them to get?
What would I like them to get? I want everyone to what I've been doing for years is traveling around the world, but it's never been about that. I traveled around the world in some cases because it was interesting, but also because it was the most affordable way for me to live. It's more affordable to travel than it is to live in Ireland. And for someone like me that's creating their business, it's cheaper for me to travel the world and create my business. Make no mistake, that's fact. So it suited me to do that. But unfortunately, the message that people sometimes get from me is that everyone needs to travel the world because I'm traveling so much, and that's not my message, because I don't care if people travel. I really don't. Half of the time I don't even want to be traveling. I look at people at home here in Ireland, and I say, geez, I wish I was there. I wish I was with my friends, or I wish I was going to do this, that, and the other. So that's not my message, but I think people sometimes think it is. I think Microadventures is more the message I want, and that's that everyone is on the same line of thinking, and that's to have a more adventurous mind. And this is something anyone can choose to have. So it doesn't mean you have to travel to Asia or out of the country. It means you can finish work at 5 o'clock, and you can go down to Glendalough and Wicklow for the night and go back to work the next morning, and you'll have had a great adventure, but you'll have used that time more adventurously. You know, it's just an example of what I mean by a more adventurous mind. But you know, that's the whole concept. It's not about even going outdoors. It's just about thinking outside of the norm or the conventional way that I was living in the past that brought me down. I know I'm not the only one that feels like that. I know other people live the way I did in the past. Or, you know, let's face it, everyone could use a bit more of adventure in their lives. You know, so that's what I'm trying to bring here, and I think Microadventures is the easiest way for me to bring that to the table. Is to take out all the excuses that people have for going on a trip, which is money, time, and I don't know how. And then what are you left with? All you have to do is start. You know, walk out your front door. Because I've already told you, it doesn't cost money, you don't need time, and everyone can do it. You don't need experience. So that's
excuses.
Yeah, take out excuses, but to take out your reasons too. Excuses is quite a negative connotation to put on anything, but yeah.
People absolutely use excuses, and we're all equipped with an incredible piece of software, excuse-making machine, that people, you know, get in the wrong way, block themselves from moving in a certain direction. So I would say that excuses is, you know, something that people do, stop themselves and block themselves from opportunities. Like what you're saying.
Yeah.
I read a comment on Facebook. Andy, your brother, he said that he had a great time when he went out with yourself.
Yeah, we brought my nephew on that. Yeah. Amazing. I wasn't prepared for that because he called me the night before, or he sent me a message, and said he was going to go out on a micro adventure and take my nephew, who's 12 years of age. And part of me was worried because I felt responsible for this decision, and part of me did not want to miss it either. I wanted to share that with my nephew, and then the other part of me didn't want him to get in trouble. So I said, look, I'm in the Wicklow Mountains, let's meet tomorrow and we'll go somewhere. But ideally I would have liked to plan that, bringing someone that young. I would like to have planned it, but none of it was planned. He rocked up, I met them in Roundwood, was it? Or near Powerscourt. They rocked up in the car, I got into the car, they said, okay, where we go? And I felt so much pressure. I was like, oh my God, my nephew's life here is at risk, you know? No, but I had none of that planned, so it was very exciting. I think that in the end was part of the excitement, because they said the next day, that was crazy, we just showed up to meet you. We didn't know where we were going to go, where we were going to sleep that night, but it was amazing. You know, that it all worked out. That's usually what happens. That's the beauty of it. You don't plan anything, not that you don't know what you're doing, but you plan in a way that nothing is prepared, but you're prepared for the unexpected, and then you're quietly surprised. You know, you go into this curious state for 10 hours, and it's a really strange feeling, but it's beautiful. It's so simple and so beautiful, and unlike anything else that you get used to doing.
Exactly. Yeah, you've mentioned this a few times to me that, like, when you're up there, you're sort of in a state of bliss and in the moment.
Yeah, and you know, it sounds a little cliche, doesn't it, to say bliss and you know, or content or happiness and that, but it does. I think it takes all the stress away. You know, you stop, because when you're doing something like, for example, that micro adventure, we walked, myself, my brother and my nephew, we walked up the mountain looking for somewhere to sleep. You know, they would have done this in caveman times. All they cared about was, okay, where are we going to find water, food, and somewhere to sleep? So that's all you have to think about. And whatever else is on your agenda for the rest of that week, trust me, when you go on a micro adventure, that's gone, because you're thinking about where you're going to sleep. Whether you're afraid or whether you're not afraid, that's all you're going to think about.
Kicks in,
but that's not a stressful thing to think about. It's kind, you know, you're going to find somewhere to sleep. It's always going to happen. You'll find it. And then the next morning you wake up and go back to what you were doing, go back to work, and you'll think to yourself, Jesus, that was great. I didn't think about work or stress, or it was fun. It worked out. That was great.
Sometimes the rat race just can have people in a bit of a tizzy. It's what you're sort of highlighting is that like, people need to get away.
Yeah.
And it's just take a break from
100%.
monotony.
As I said, that's why I knew and how I knew that Microadventures is a way to connect with everyone here on a personal level. Is that they can get involved with what I do. You know, they can take these trips not with me, but they can take them also.
Yeah.
So they're not just following what I do. There's something there for them. You know, it's something they all can do. It's something that can be part of their lives. You know, you don't have to have a particular job, or you just have to have a particular mindset.
Yeah.
You know, or an outlook. That's all you need.
How can people find your videos and maybe your page on Facebook?
Well, yeah, Facebook, YouTube. That's where I mostly put my content. I'll focus a lot more on video content in the future, and some of the how-to. You know, I will do the gear reviews or talk to people about going camping for the first time. But yeah, Facebook and YouTube.
And what's the page called?
No hanging around on Facebook, and then just my name on YouTube, Derek Cullen.
Okay, I'll show it into the details.
Thanks for that.
Thank you for having a conversation with me.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. It's not often you come to an interview with not having any idea what you're going to get asked, but